All right. We'll go ahead and call the June 21st, 2021 Caroline County Broadband Advisory Committee meeting to order. We'll go ahead and get it started. Do we have the agenda is up on the screen? Does anybody have any amendments that they'd like to make to the agenda at this point in time, or has everybody had a chance to read over it?
I'm good.
Okay. All right, I'll take that as everybody's good at this point. The consent agenda, we need to approve the minutes from the May 17th, 2021 meeting. Do we want to read those, or they've been sent out? Did everybody have a chance to read over those?
I would move that we approve the minutes as recorded.
As distributed, and I'll second that if that works.
Perfect. All right. All in favor? Do we need to have a vote on that one?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So all in favor of the minutes approved as they've been sent out, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. All right. We'll approve the minutes from the the May 17th, 2021 meeting. So we'll move down into old business now. The number 2 bullet point there. David will ask you to update us on the 2021 VATI process.
All right. So in your packet today, you also received a press release from Atlantic Broadband. That is tailored from Atlantic Broadband, so it's kind of a broad message to all of the jurisdictions. What generally happens is those press releases are used by Alan Parton with the county, and he will adjust that press release a bit to be more specific to Caroline and make a press release from that. So I think my intentions are, when I get those press releases, though, I'll send them right out to you guys so you get the actual press release from Atlantic Broadband to keep us updated on the project. I have talked with some representatives from Atlantic Broadband on the VATI project. They are walking out and engineering Port Royal currently. They should be done mid-August to the 1st of September with all of the engineering plans for all of Caroline, and actually start construction shortly thereafter. We are going to be one of the earlier jurisdictions to be served. There'll be 2 started right away, and then 2 will be held off till later. So we're going to be we're early on in the process. So that's exciting. The main thing to note is that if anybody on this committee or Mr. Thomas or anyone receives a call saying, "Hey, I see somebody walking around in my yard," yes, Atlantic Broadband is working diligently to do those engineering studies and all. We talked briefly last time about the timeline of payment. So the first milestone that they have to hit is the engineering study completed. So they're going to get that done as quickly as possible so that we can get a bill and we can go ahead and start. Supposedly, the fiber has been ordered for quite a while. The electronic equipment has been on order for quite a while. They're not expecting any problems with timelines. The good thing is that it does sound like when we applied for the VATI grant, there was going to be a lot of hybrid cable connections with coax and fiber, but the plans are that the entire build of all the projects in all the different areas will end up being a complete fiber build. So it's an upgrade at no additional cost to us, which is good because it'll future-proof those installations even more. So everything is on track. We've had a number of management meetings since our last meeting, and we have more coming up early July, just to make sure that we have everything in order to submit to DHCD. Other than that, as far as that is concerned, that's all I have on that, Jason.
That's actually really good news, David. Thank you. And that's really, especially doing an entire fiber build out versus the hybrid cable connection. That'll definitely future-proof us. Definitely get us further down. All right. Well, again, this is going to be the David show. We're going to do an update on the proposed area for the 2021 project area.
Jason, quick question, Jason, before you go to number 3. For David, and just to let the people know that are watching and listening, the actual construction or the actual connections after the study is done in mid-August or September, what's the time frame for that? Did they give you anything for that yet?
The rough time frame would be about 12 months. They should be nearly, if not completely, finished in Carolina in roughly 12 months after they start. So it's going to go fairly quick. We're going from 0 to 60 real fast. So while it does not seem like from the outside looking in that there's much going on right now, there's a tremendous amount of work being done by Atlantic Broadband right now, getting everything ready, getting in place. So they're definitely moving forward even ahead of the contract being signed. So as soon as that contract is signed, they can actually start hanging fiber and getting stuff ready.
All right, thanks a lot.
So I guess that's interesting. So one thing that you just said that perked up my ears, they're hanging the fire instead of laying the fiber. So it'll be fiber in the air.
It'll be a combination of overhead and underground.
Okay.
They have poles that are high enough. They will hang them on poles. There'll be some areas where they will have to bore underground, but it'll be a combination. It's not going to be all one way or the other.
Okay. Good.
And the whole project, based on the grant, is supposed to be completed no later than 18 months after the award. So we're well in that time frame.
Yes. Now, again, we mentioned it kind of last meeting, but they will allow an extension beyond that 18-month period if they have problems getting materials. But as of right now, we don't anticipate that.
Yeah, the only thing is we probably needed to set expectations a little better once we got the grant. I personally have gotten calls from constituents saying, well, when is it going to be connected? So we got the grant, but we're still, maybe 12 months at the most out, right?
That's the estimates as of now, barring any unforeseen delays in materials or otherwise. That's their game plan, and they're a little reluctant to give you a hard finish date other than 18 months after the award.
Right.
Because they may have to change, but that is their estimate as of right now.
I guess, David, since you've had communications with Atlantic Broadband on this, are they planning on, or would they turn on different people as they finish off different areas, or is it going to be an all on at one time across the entire project? Is there, do they have any potential to turn on light up this piece of fiber and then come back later and light up this piece of fiber? Or have they given you any idea on that?
So what they told us is that in the 4 counties, they actually have those divided down into, I believe, either 22 or 25 separate projects.
Okay.
Probably 3 or 4 separate projects. And it's my belief is that once that project is ready to go, they'll fire that up. They're not going to wait until everybody's hooked up to fire it all up at once. As they finish a project area, they'll fire that up. One of the other milestones, or one of the last milestones, is verifying speeds. to do the speed verification and turn it over to us or turn it over to the customers to start using.
Okay. That'll be good. More good news. That's a good thing. All right. Anybody have any more comments on number 2? All right. Then we'll skip down and go to number 3, which is an update on the proposed area for the 2022 project area.
So if you remember at the last meeting, we mentioned the fact that we are in talks with 2, if not 3 unnamed partners to look at an area down in Southern Carolina in the Dawn area. 2 of those providers that we had talked to both had the same request that we give them a listing of a proposed area as far as 911 addresses and latitude and longitude of the houses that we want to serve. I've been working with Tyler Day from GIS. We've met several times since our last meeting. And as of late this afternoon, I have a spreadsheet with a bunch of addresses in that area ready to go out tomorrow to 2 of the 3 partners that we've been talking with. So that's kind of what they were waiting on. They really needed that from us, especially if we're able to use the accelerated timeline that just was brought to our attention. In a meeting with several partners, Atlantic Broadband actually mentioned that they felt that they may be able to provide us with some numbers as well, and that they could possibly have it in time for a VATI grant application during this cycle. So we've got the information that we need. We'll get it to all the partners that are interested. We'll see if we're able to get those numbers back. I would be surprised if we're able to do it, but we're going to do our best to try to get numbers back from partners and be in a position where we can apply. Just remember that the letter of intent that's due in July to DHCD does not specifically say a particular partner. It just a letter to them stating that we intend to apply. Based on the actions of the board, we have contacted 1 partner in reference to the project over in Western Carolina and told them that we are interested in applying. They are working on final numbers so that we have concrete enough numbers to apply for a grant. And we hope to hear back from them in the next 2 to 3 weeks with some numbers so that we can actually look at what the numbers would look like once we apply and make sure that everything still works. But I guess the big point on that is we have 1 project that we worked on for quite a while. We started work on another project. So we're trying to keep, with projects that are ready as much as we can. So as things move along, we want to always try to keep a project, in the hopper to get it ready. And so that's what we're doing. We're working on the area in Southern Carolina, whether that's this cycle. There's also other funding options that are available. So it could be another different funding option that's available to us. But either way, we're working to get that area defined and look at some numbers to see what it's going to look like.
Okay. Any questions on that one? Okay.
Yes, Jason, one thing, we did pretty much the same thing with our first VATI grant, the one we didn't win, and then the one we did win. The one we didn't win was just 1 area. The one we did win, we were including that area and then added Port Royal. So we had 2 projects that worked out. So the same may be true now. We've got 1 we're looking at, and we may have a second one, which is a bigger project. And sometimes the bigger projects get more attention from VATI.
During one of our meetings with the different partners involved, one of the partners said that he had actually been in conversation with DHCD and DHCD is saying, think big. So we're thinking big, and 2 projects would be big. I guess since the 2 different partners and logistically 2 different areas, it would have to be almost 2 separate batty applications. I don't know that that can be combined, but that's still to be determined. So we're working through that.
Yeah, I think one of their scoring categories was working with other vendors and or other, localities, towns and things. So if we have multiple vendors, that may give us multiple points. We have to work hard to make sure we can all play together. That's the big thing.
That's the thing to just keep in mind, that Mr. Thomas and Mr. Seeley, who's not here, and the rest of the board, they're totally committed to deliver the availability of internet to everybody in Carolina. It's just that we have to do it in stages. But our goal and the goal of this committee is to have an internet connection offered to everyone, whether you take it or not. That would be up to you. But I can tell you from the inside that we have a board that is committed. Mr. Thomas is working extremely hard. Mr. Seeley's working hard. Both of those guys are on this committee. And it's not just, they're not just talking about it. They are actually committed to making things happen. All right, Jason,
All right.
I think that covers that, unless anybody else has any questions about that project area.
All right. We'll jump down to number 4 then, which is discussing concerns involving Atlantic Broadband.
So at the behest of this committee, I reached out to Atlantic Broadband. I also talked with a sales rep in the process of getting some pricing on some other jobs that we wanted them to look at. And I brought it to his attention that we were concerned about the homes on 721 Sparta Road between 301 and roughly the campground area down towards Sparta. And that, really, if we're looking to partner with them in other ways, who knows where we may end up partnering with them, but it would really set better if we had the houses that currently have fiber hanging on the poles out front turned on. We're trying to come up with solutions to serve every house in Carolina, but yet, that long stretch of 721 down through there has fiber hanging on the poles, but nobody can connect to it. I also mentioned that our concern was that for quite some time, their standard response was, oh, it's going to happen in 3 months. And 3 months comes and goes, and has, we were here in 3 months 3 years ago. And so we were just concerned that we just needed a better feel for when those customers would be connected. Atlantic Broadband did get back to me with an answer from a person in a position that should be able to answer it, more so than call centers and different things. According to Mike Scott, one of their construction guys, the head end upgrade in Bowling Green is complete. And they have crews currently in that area of 721 Sparta Road verifying splices and making sure everything is ready. On or about, or maybe even before the 15th of July, sales will start going down through there and actually talking to those people about getting connected. So they'll be able to start connecting hopefully mid-July. So that is the best, the most concrete numbers that we've gotten from them as of yet. But apparently there were a number of different delays related to COVID, chip shortages, logistics, just of course demand created by money for broadband. All of that made it really difficult for them to get the equipment for the head end, but they have received it, it is in place, and that upgrade is complete. So hopefully we're getting real close being able to offer something to those people down Sparta Road.
That's good news. Get that fiber lit back up and get them turned back on.
Or if there's no more questions, that will cover the concerns involving Atlantic Broadband.
All right, we'll jump into my portion of the show. David was very excited when I sent him this one, where I would actually be talking a little bit instead of it being just the David show. Wanted to give everybody an update on a company that I have reached out to and talked to several times, and Mr. Thomas has actually talked to them once or twice, and that is on Windship. I got an email today that was very concerning from Windship, and ended up, oh, you're pulling it up. Okay. Were you going to pull it up, David?
I'm going to get the correct page.
Okay. It's windship.net. Got an email saying that they were basically no longer going to be offering wireless internet in King William. They posted out on their website this document to all their customers, but wanted to keep everybody up to date on that. They're basically killing the project in King William, and they are still going to be servicing Hanover County. I actually talked to Ray today after I got the email. I reached out to him to see what was going on. They're still going to be doing Hanover County. They did get their shortwave radio or their CVRS license, so that way they can, potentially look at doing some sort of high frequency radio transmissions to get better penetration through the trees. Excuse me. But they will be continuing doing Hanover at this point, but they will not be doing King William. So that was one of the options that we had potentially looked at with some sort of wireless offering, but with King William and Caroline County having very similar typologies, things along that nature, I don't know how viable the Windship would potentially be. We'd have to talk to them and get more data, but just wanted to bring you guys up to date.
Frank, I have
Jason, go ahead.
Go ahead, Mr. Thomas.
That sounded like somebody else, like Frank. Go ahead, Frank.
Frank, I had a question for you. I believe one of their entry points for data was West Point. Would that be, I just wonder if that's considered, is that King William or is that another county?
West Point is King William. Of course, it's an entity of its own within King William. But I don't know, they were at some point, I know I read online that they did have one or two customers in West Point. But as I've stated from the very beginning, their whole model of what they're trying to do will not work, period. I'm not sure whether this new frequency stuff that they've got an allocation for, if it's anything above 2.4 gigahertz, it's not going to work. It's not going to work in a rural area with trees. It could be the same deal. My best guess is if they're talking about doing stuff in Hanover, they're probably looking at maybe trying to do stuff around Mechanicsville, some of the more, metropolitan areas where they've got some congestion of clients, possible clients, and maybe some line of sight. But I mean, David, you know as well as I do, a tree branch in between, anything, especially with 5 gigahertz, it's not going to work, period.
Yeah, I think when I spoke to him earlier today, they were looking at 2.4 gigahertz. Now, that's not going to give you the speeds at the distances that, it's not going to give you the super high speed, but they were saying that the lower frequency would penetrate the trees better.
It will do better, but still 2.4 is, you might get through a tree branch or two, but any amount of trees at all, it's not going to penetrate.
Right.
What frequency is CBRS? That's an old cell phone. Is that 3D?
I honestly don't know. I would assume that's probably down below 1,000 would be my guess, but even then, if you're doing stuff at those lower frequencies, you're not gonna be able to get the bandwidth that you're gonna need to support a whole lot of customers at one time.
Or speed, or speeds
you know-
you can support?
I honestly don't know if, as far as the 900 megahertz stuff goes, I think usually around, if you've got a close connection with not much foliage in the way, you might get 20 megabits per second. But even then, I mean, I've done all this for years, and I've done the 900 and stuff all around here and through Sparta and so forth. And it's flaky. It's just not 100% reliable. So my advice to anybody that was thinking about investing money into Windchip would be to keep your money. I think you'd just be throwing it away and wasting time.
Well, can I ask you a question, Frank? I think you'd be the one that, can tell me. I've got a cell phone and I turn on my cell phone hotspot and then I use that as an internet connection. How fast is that normally?
Well, Jason can probably answer that question better than I can, but typically the speed is going to be determined by how good a connection your cell phone has to the closest Verizon tower. And that's the same thing as if you had a hotspot that connected directly, just like the little ones they gave it to.
Right, the school kids, right.
Yeah, so you're doing the same exact thing. You're just using your phone as a means of converting it to 2.4 gigahertz. You're turning it into basically a hotspot, the same thing that the kids had.
Now, is it that fast? Is it 2.4 that fast?
Well, the 2.4 is the connection between your computer and your cell phone. But your cell phone to the tower, that connection is where your speed is going to be limited depending on, how much foliage you've got, how far away you are.
Right.
What band they happen to be connecting you on and all that sort of thing, and then how much congestion there is on that particular tower. For instance, you go into Bowling Green, downtown Bowling Green, you can go there and typically you can connect with a hotspot there, but you're not going to get more than maybe 3 megabits per second. Is about the best you can do. Whereas
because it's so busy
and because there's not much signal in Bowling Green, but you can come here to downtown Sparta, you can do it in my front yard and connect to the tower that's about a mile away. Actually, it's less than a mile away. I can get probably, 70, 80 megabits per second, which is very usable. But you're talking about two different things. The reason that cell phones can penetrate trees and so forth is because, number one, they're using a much higher powered signal in order to transmit from the tower. And two, it's a low enough frequency that it can penetrate trees. Just like, as you go down in frequency, the old analog television stuff was in, 88 megahertz and below for channels, I forget where the breakoff was, maybe 6 and below or something like that, I believe. And the others were just above the FM band. But, with that, you can penetrate trees because it'll bounce all around and do all kinds of stuff. But when you get into microwave stuff, you've got to have line of sight. It's just, if it's going to be reliable, that's the only way it's going to work.
Yeah, you just reminded me about listening to the AM radio in the summertime and hearing baseball games from the Midwest.
Yep. So. And that's even way down below. And that stuff just bounces right off the ionosphere and goes all around the world. So.
Jason, can you touch on that? Because I've got a follow-up I want to ask, once you ask your opinion.
So I know there are cell phone hotspots that you can use. I tend to, I run a ton of speed tests with my cell phone all around the county, and I can get anywhere from 200 megabits per second. At some places I can only get 1 to 2 megs per second. Like Frank said, it just depends on, the congestion of the tower, what your cell phone signal is, what band, because actually the newer cell phones, the cell phone companies are actually utilizing newer bands that give you higher, and they're actually, some of the bands they've created actually combine two bands together to give you even more speed. I know AT&T has done that here recently, that there's actually two bands that they've banded together to give you a higher frequency or a better speed. But yeah, it's the newer cell phones give you access to those. So the older your cell phone, the slower, you have access only up to the bands that were approved during that time with your that your cell phone was manufactured.
Okay. And the reason I asked you to that, and for anybody else who knows more, I'd be happy to listen to them. But I think the county has to make an investment in the short term connection for folks for internet. I know kids will be going back to school in September. They should be in class, but we still need to work out something, because I'm sure there'll be some hybrid things. If the county needs to invest in hotspots, that's one short-term thing, and then we could just move those around. That's why I thought this fixed wireless would be a good idea, because we could set it up in a location, and then when that location got fiber, we could move that to another location. But it sounds like we need to, for the short term, look at hotspots, using cell phones, and probably more antennas for the cell phone providers. I'm not sure they're interested in that, but we need to improve reception throughout the county, so that's the only way. Okay. That was it, David, or Jason, thank you.
Okay.
Frank, it looks like CBRS is generally referred to a 3.5 gigahertz frequency. It's considered private LTE.
That was LTE. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that sounds about right. And there again, so you're between 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. You're still got to have good line of sight for that to do anything, as far as if that's what they're planning to transmit on. It'll be better. It'll be better than 5 gigahertz, but still.
I did mention to Jason earlier when we were discussing tonight's meeting that the gentleman from Broadband Telecom mentioned that they were using some CBRS and getting about 5 miles from a tower. And I don't know if he meant 5 miles, in a 360-degree circle with the tower being the center, or whether it's 5 miles in a radius from that tower. But that does sound like, that's covering some areas. So there may be hope there.
So wait, David, you're saying fiber runs to that tower, and then with CBR, he gets a 5 mile radius?
Yeah, either fiber or some other kind of wireless backbone that can tie the towers together. Is generally what they use. You can use some wireless equipment to tie a radio tower to tower. So you don't necessarily have to build fiber all the way to that tower, but somewhere it has to tie into a fiber or a strong internet connection to be able to redistribute it, and then it's redistributed at the end. From that 3.5 gigahertz radio, probably a multi-point radio set on a tower, that would be considered the last mile distributor or distribution. So that would be from that tower to an endpoint.
Because we're sending microwave from Carmel Church down to Dawn.
For the library.
Yeah, to the Dawn Library.
And that's 5 gigahertz. And in fact, we installed more 5 gigahertz radios last Friday. We are using that. As long as you get high enough and get a good line of sight, then it works and it'll go a long ways. But I guess that would be something where we would need to probably get some outside help, talking to the right people and figuring out what we can do in the short term. And what you're saying, Mr. Thomas, is right in line with our strategic plan. trying to, look at that as a short-term solution and then looking to back it up with a more longer future-proof solution down the road.
Yeah, I was trying to bring that back. So
All
okay.
right. Anything else in the old business update on anything, or anybody have any more questions on Winship or wireless? All right, we'll go ahead and transition into new business. Number 6, or point number 6, is discuss the 2022 application tasks or task contract.
So what we're looking at is the County Board of Supervisors, I believe it was at the last meeting, Mr. Thomas moved to use Broadband Telecom to help to hire them in a position of overall, our portion of the overall management of the entire VATI project.
Right, meeting before last.
So that would mean I would still be the project manager for Caroline. However, I would turn my information over to Broadband Telecom, who would then submit it. The problem that you have is that with VATI, there's in a multi-jurisdictional application like that, there's one jurisdiction that has to be named the main applicant. And in our situation, that was Matthews County.
Mhm.
But then when all this paperwork starts flowing and bills start being signed off on, at that point, it becomes way too much for Matthews to be able to handle the submission of all the documents and stuff on time to make sure everything meets the deadlines to keep the project moving. So we could approve our paperwork and send it in, but it still has to be approved by the overall project manager and submitted to DHCD for payment. So what we looked at and the Board of Supervisors approved the task contract for Broadband Telecom to serve in that overall position, and they're serving for multiple jurisdictions, with the exception, I believe, of Lancaster, that has a broadband authority. And on that broadband authority, there is a person, the person in charge of that broadband authority work in the cable industry. So he's willing to oversee that for their locality as well as their portion of the overall management. So Broadband Telecom will be doing the overall management for multiple jurisdictions within that committee or within that project. What we're looking at is to enter into a much more limited contract with them to actually handle the application process for the 2022 VATI cycle. I believe at this point, we probably should wait to discuss this until we go into a closed session, probably at the next meeting. But just to let everybody know, we have multiple items that will have to be discussed at the next meeting that will require us to go into closed session. So we'll basically adjourn, call the meeting to order, approve the minutes from this meeting, and then go pretty much into closed session where just because there are several defined reasons why you're allowed to do that, or it would be favorable for us. And negotiating a contract in public would put us at a bad position, then that's one of the exemptions. So chances are, just to give everybody a heads up, chances are next meeting, a good portion of that will be closed, just so that we can try to get some of this business out of the way.
And David, don't you think it would be really important if we get all of those non-disclosures signed before the next meeting so we can talk openly about other options?
Yes, and for everybody that's on this meeting, just be on the lookout for an email from us mid-cycle before the next meeting, and it'll be asking for your signature on an NDA. And from that NDA, you'll have a pretty good idea of what it's involving. But we are, and I'm under, and several other county employees are under an NDA. So we need to expand that to this committee as well. And my goal is to have that taken care of by the next meeting, which, when did we say that was, Jason?
July 17th, something, or sometime around then. I'll look real quick. It was going to be July 19th.
July 19th?
Yep.
My birthday.
Oh, a present for you. Or you want to move it to the second Tuesday?
19th is fine. But we'll stay on the third Monday schedule, so as not to interrupt anything. So my
We'll
goal,
have to sing happy birthday to you when we start the meeting. Okay. Mr. Thomas will do that though. I'll volunteer him.
Oh, that's gonna turn him off.
so my goal is to have that, and I will be out of town next week. So when I get back the following week, that's going to be the first thing that we start working on, is to try to get those NDAs signed by everybody, because we do have some stuff that we need to discuss in this committee that we are under NDAs, or we're negotiating contracts where we can't discuss them publicly. So just everybody have just heads up that we're probably looking at a majority of a closed session meeting on that day.
Okay.
Okay.
Any questions? All right, we can go to point number 7, which is discuss the use of a broadband consulting firm.
So my thoughts with this is, again, I've been a part of this committee, and I don't look to stop being a part of this committee. However, with the multiple directions that funding's becoming available, and it would be almost a full-time job just to keep up with the funding trail. I really think that we should take a look, and we probably will at the next meeting, at some task contracts or statements of work from consultants, and see if we can define one down where we can actually get a price from them. I don't want to be the reason why we miss funding or miss deadlines, and it's becoming very, very difficult with the amount of workload that I have in my job. Jason and I always joke about me doing all the talking, but like I told Jason, I'm one of the employees on this committee, basically, that it's part of my day job to do this. So that's the reason why I spend a little more time. You guys volunteer your time, and we appreciate everything that you do. But at some point, we may need some help just keeping up with funding mechanisms, and maybe looking at our strategic plan and making sure that that's where it needs to be, different things like that. So what we'll do is probably at the next meeting, we'll take a look at some statements of work that define what we're looking for from contractors. We'll try to get down a statement of work for the application filing, as well as maybe even look at one for a broadband consulting firm. If we can get a statement of work that's narrow enough to meet our needs, then we would look for action from this committee to recommend that the board consider it as well. So that's where we're at with that.
Okay. Any questions on that? All right, so that moves us into discussing our next meeting. Or actually, before we do that, is there any other new business that's not on the agenda that needs to be brought up?
Or anything? Does anybody have anything else that needs to come before this committee?
Yeah. Okay. Real quick, I just want to touch on one thing. With the NDAs, David, if we don't have a way to sign it digitally, is that something that we can just go up to the county office and right there in Bowling Green and sign it, or?
Yes, Pam Hall would be the keeper of the original document. You probably want to sign that original document. And if you're in that area and you can get by there and sign it, that's one less e-signature that we will need.
Okay.
Basically, it's going to come down to when we go into closed session and we start discussing this, if your name's not on an NDA, then unfortunately we'll have to ask you not to be present in that meeting just because we can't violate it. So
Right.
we want input from everybody that's in here. I'll work on getting a e-signature solution so that you don't have to make that trip. But if you are in Bowling Green and you want to stop by the admin office and check with Pam Hall, she should be able to help you with that.
Can you send out just a email to everybody that's on the committee stating that, or Mr. Thomas, if you could send something out, if somebody could send out something,
Sure.
Because like I know Mr. Jacobus is on vacation. There's several members on the committee that are not here. So if we could get that information to them, that we're going to look for an e-signature document or e-signature application. But if we can't get it, we need everybody that's going to be present at the next meeting to swing by the administration office to sign that at some point in time.
Okay. And we all, again, just for those who are listening and don't know, but we all know that we talk to several different vendors, and there may be vendors we haven't talked to, and some want to work together and some are competitors. So we cannot disclose any information that we get from any one vendor as it relates to the next one. So that's the real reason. But I will send out a note myself.
I'll do a follow-up as well, Mr. Thomas. It'll probably be tomorrow. We'll shoot out an email to everybody that's on the mailing list.
Okay.
All righty, we can do that.
Thank you. All right. Well, the next meeting, I'm guessing we'll all meet July 19th on Mr. Sadler's birthday, and we should all have cake and ice cream at our cameras, so that way we can, celebrate for him, and then we can discuss all sorts of broadband stuff at the next meeting.
I think maybe, Jason, we might be close to being able to meet in person by then.
Well, that's what I was going to ask is, when do we want to discuss, potentially even trying to meet in person face to face? Do we want to wait until after the summer?
I would suggest, and it's just my opinion, I'll throw it out there for you guys to consider, but maybe since the next meeting is going to be mostly closed session anyway, I'm sure Jeff can attest to the fact that it gets frustrating to have an open meeting that just immediately goes into closed session when you're sitting there streaming it. So I think just from a logistical standpoint, I think we can discuss that next meeting and try to come up with a plan to where we can actually meet if that's okay with everyone.
When is the next VATI grant submission is in September or October?
September is the deadline for that application.
Okay.
Sometime in September. So we're still, I've talked to multiple people and they're all saying, yeah, it's still doable. So we're going to continue working forward until people start telling us it's too late. But we're going to try to get as much as we can ready for that.
My thought was just that we would actually meet in person sometime before that submission was due. That's all. So, I mean, we can do July by Zoom, and then maybe August we'll meet in person, probably to look at maps and things of that nature.
That would probably be a good idea.
Okay.
All right.
Well, that's exciting to hear. All right. If there's no other business to discuss, we'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So move.
All right.
Aye.
Thank you, guys. All in favor, say aye.
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 All right.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time again.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.